Good morning. My name is Elias Redstone, and I'm the Artistic Director of Photo 2021 International Festival of Photography. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I live and have been living on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation for the past few years. I pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging, and am very well of the fact that sovereignty has never been ceded. Thank you for joining us for a second season of Photo Live. This season will feature 5 conversations with Photo 2021 artists about the social and cultural role photography plays in our everyday lives, addressing a range of issues from identity and belonging to human rights and social justice, and highlighting the importance of centering Black, Indigenous, feminist, and queer voices. Photo Live expands on Photo 2021's festival theme, exploring the relationship between photography and the truth. Photo Live is supported by Creative Victoria and the Australia Council for the Arts, and today's event is presented in partnership with Bunjil Place. Today, I'm delighted to be able to introduce the American photographer Dana Scruggs, who is currently exhibiting in the Aperture exhibition, The New Black Vanguard, Photography Between Art and Fashion. The exhibition is curated by Antoine Sargent and is being presented exclusively in Australia at Bunjil Place until 27th of September as part of Photo 2021's expanded programme. However, while Melbourne is in lockdown, you can view a virtual tour of the exhibition online. If you'd like to find out more about the exhibition, upcoming Photo Live talks, and Photo 2021 International Festival of Photography, please visit our website, photo.org.au. Now, originally from the south side of Chicago, Dana Scruggs has been living and working in New York for the past 7 years. In 2016, she launched Scruggs Magazine, a print publication dedicated to her vision of the male form. She has since gone on to shoot for a number of publications, including GQ and the New York Times. And in 2018, she became the first Black person to photograph the cover of Rolling Stone magazine in its 50-year history. Dana will be in conversation with creative director Grace Dlabik. Grace is dedicated as an activist and philanthropist, an entrepreneur, and an expert in fashion and pop culture. She is the founder of B and B1 Creative and has been dubbed by the Age newspaper as Melbourne's best kept secret. Okay, hi there, Dana and Grace. Are you both there with us?
Yes, hi, how are you?
Hi, good evening over there in New York. I think Grace is just joining us on screen now.
Hello, hi everyone.
Is your video coming up? Okay. As we wait for Grace's video, there you are. Hi.
Hi, I don't know what's happening with my internet connection. It could be that everyone's on lockdown and using the bandwidth here.
Absolutely. Now, listen, I'm going to hand over to both of you to have the Photo Live conversation. For viewers, if anyone has questions for either of our speakers today, please post them at any point during the conversation. And Grace will get to these later on and ask Dana at the end of the conversation. To give everyone a kind of a rough running order, the conversation will last about half an hour to 40 minutes, and there'll be questions presented at the end. So thank you in advance. I'll hand over to both of you now.
Hi, Dana, welcome.
Hi.
It's so nice to connect with fellow Black people from across the world. There's not that many of us in Australia, so it's always nice to see more Black people around the world. Yeah, I wanted to just touch on, to begin with, the start of your career, because I find it very interesting that you began on the social platform of Etsy, selling your things, right?
Yeah, so it's been kind of a winding road. I was going through a period of just severe depression. And I was so depressed that I couldn't leave my house. So I decided, you know, in order to pay my rent, I would try to sell all of the vintage clothing and like knickknacks and furniture that I had on Etsy. So that's what I did. I asked my mom to help me get my first DSLR. And she lent me her Best Buy card, which is a chain of electronic stores out here. And I bought it on Black Friday. And then I found some models on Model Mayhem and pretended like I was a photographer. I had been kind of like a stylist previously. Yeah, and that's kind of how I started. I just, you know, found models online and shopped them for my Etsy shop. And as I progressed, or as I, you know, my shop started to grow, I would just go on Model Mayhem, which I would never suggest anybody going on there now. It's like not, it's not the place, you know what I mean? It's not a place to find models. But anyways, but I did. And then as it progressed, I would just post more photos to my Model Mayhem page and to find more models. And then modeling agencies started reaching out to me to test with their models. And that's how I started. So I started testing.
It lends itself to the whole saying of fake it till you make it.
Exactly. There's a ice cream truck outside. Is it very loud?
I can hear it. I thought it was just in the background, some tingling happening.
Should I close the window, or is it fine?
I think it should be okay.
Okay.
Perhaps our tech person can text me and let me know if that sound is okay. So fake it till you make it, and it seems to be such a kind of resounding thing for a lot of people these days, of just like starting up and just like, how do you start when everything is against you, especially in publication areas, editorial magazines. It's very difficult becoming a photographer and having the opportunities that you need in order to survive. So can you tell us a little bit about what that looked like for you from the start to, you know, when you began your publication? Because I had read that you began your publication because you never were able to get into publications to have your work in them. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about the idea of creating your own publication, because that's a very expensive exercise to do print, and to also just to put the effort and energy into shoots and, you know, all the likes, post-production, and then developing the whole idea from conception right through to publication.
Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, I'd been in New York for a few years and really had no idea about how to even contact publications. Like, I would go and buy a magazine and then try to find, like, I didn't even really know who to look for. I didn't really know, like, photo editor, creative director. Like, you know, I just had no clue. So I would like look up the fashion, you know, director or fashion editor's name, and then like try to find them on social media, or I don't even know what I was doing. It wasn't working, and it was very frustrating. The few emails that I was able to find of, you know, people working in the industry, I wouldn't get any responses, or maybe I got one for one publication. And then I had a few indie magazine things that I did. But you know, if I wanted to work for like a bigger publication, or if I wanted to even work for some of these smaller ones, they wouldn't even respond to me. So it's like, okay, well, I want to shoot models that I like, that, you know, inspire me. But most of those models are signed with agencies that only, you know, well, they're signed with agencies, and they're also at a certain level where their agents don't let them test anymore, which is understandable. So, you know, they're only letting them work if it's for a publication and if it's for print, which back then was, it had to be like printed. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna start my own magazine so I can shoot the models I want and shoot the concepts that I want. I don't have to pitch to anybody. And yeah, so that's how I started Scruggs. And I wrote all the content myself. I shot all the content myself. I retouched everything myself. It took me 2 years. I thought I was gonna die. Luckily I didn't. But yeah, and then I had a friend do the layout, and then I found a printer in London who was actually cheaper than any printer here in New York, in the US, in Mexico, and in Canada. And they had the same paper as a magazine that I love. And I had been looking for the right paper for like for at least a year, and I couldn't, find it. And I stumbled across this magazine. I was like, oh my God. And luckily they had like the colophon. So they had like the type of paper, the weight of paper, like just everything. So I just like searched, for this particular paper, and this printer in London popped up, and they're like a collective. It's called Calvert's London. And they were really, really great, working with somebody who had never printed before, didn't know anything about magazines, and were very, helpful. So.
Well, creating your own content and conceptually putting something together and doing all the work behind the scenes is like such a huge feat. So kudos to you for doing that, because it just takes so much work and dedication to be able to do something like that. And as we all know, there's not much money in print. So you clearly didn't do it for the money.
No. And I crowdfunded it. So I have a lot of people that reach out and they ask me about the magazine, or they have like different ideas that they want to create. And I always suggest crowdfunding. Sometimes people don't want to ask other people for money, and they don't want to ask their friends, they don't want to ask their family. And then it's like, but I have all these ideas, but I need the money to do it. So it's like at a certain time, at a certain point, you have to give up your pride, and you just have to say, I need help, and asking for help will get you where you want to go. So I asked people for help, and I should have asked for more money. I always say that, because I put in so much of my own money. I didn't think people would give me money, so I asked for like the bare minimum. And and when you're printing and where you're doing all this stuff, it doesn't cover it. So you need to like overshoot whatever it is that the dollar amount that you think you need, because it's gonna, But yeah, I just, and you have to consistently ask them for money. Sometimes people put up a crowdfunding thing once or twice, and it's like they're disappointed when they don't get any money. And I'm like, you have to put it up. You have to engage your audience every single day. I was posting 3 times a day. I was hitting people's inboxes, people that I literally hadn't seen since 2nd grade, and asking them for money. And sometimes people will give me like $5. Sometimes they give me $50. Sometimes they give me $100. So it's like, you have to like give up your pride.
I mean, that says so much about you, though. That in its own self, giving up your pride and having the courage to do that, when a lot of Black people are experiences to diminish ourselves and not ask for help, because, I guess we're always told that we, expect the most from the government and people and all those kinds of handouts, but that's not true at all. And so to undo a lot of that way of thinking is a big testament to you and the strength that you have for determination within yourself to create something that you envision and going for that dream to do it. So I wanted to touch on the concepts within Scruggs, your magazine, and kind of exploring the male form and what drew you to kind of taking these images of male bodies as opposed to maybe female bodies, or alike.
Yeah, I guess I want to say one thing in response to what you just said. Yeah, there is this viewpoint of Black people that we are constantly looking for, handouts or like on public assistance and things like that, at least in America. And I think it's really unfortunate, because most of the people in America that are on public assistance are white people. So, it's just like I think what's happening with things like the New Black Vanguard. This is my dog, she just keeps, coming close. But anyways, with the New Black Vanguard and Black photographers that are getting more of an opportunity to be heard and for their work to be seen as disrupting those ideologies that that America, that colonial empires like Australia, like Great Britain, these viewpoints that they have of us, and that those viewpoints that they have of us aren't true. That it's something that they made up. So yeah, I think more awareness of who we really are is so important. So I'm really glad that our exhibition is in Australia right now.
Yeah, it's a very important thing, the stigma that has been attached to a lot of Black people here in Australia, and Indigenous people in particular. And that's, I wanted to kind of talk about, this idea of being able to convey what I wanted to do inside the magazine, and how that is an act of, I guess, body liberation in a way where, a lot of the colonial lenses have fetishized a lot of Black bodies. What was your kind of into body and kind of the way people see Black bodies?
You were breaking up throughout that, so I'm not sure what the question is. Could you repeat that, please? Now you're frozen. I can't hear you.
Dana, hi. I'm going to jump in if that's okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, while Grace is frozen, it'd be really great to see some of your work. I know you've got some of your early work ready to show and to talk about, about how you were started with the male body as a subject matter. Do you want to share your screen and talk through that?
Yeah. So. Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is some very early work that we're just having all these technology like mishaps right now. But yeah, this is some of my early work that I really haven't shown that much, pretty much just on my social media when I first shot it. But I was really enamored, and I still am enamored with the male form. And when I first moved to New York, I was coming from Chicago, which is a place that is mainly or at least back then was mainly a very commercial market, very female centered. So I was really only shooting women. And then when I moved here, I'd always wanted to shoot more like male models. And I had the opportunity, like the first week I was here, to test with a model. And I wish I had pulled that image up too. But when I first shot a male model, like a real male model, that just kind of opened my eyes so much to their masculinity, their energy. I was just like very much enamored with how free I could get them to be with female models. Sometimes it can be difficult. At least I was working with ones that weren't very seasoned. Am I still talking?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that when I started working with male models, and the first one was like, pretty seasoned, I was just like, wow, like this is how it just like made sense. And from that moment on, for at least, almost 6 years, most of my early career, I really only shot men. So yeah, and this is early work kind of like shows like how I was, enamored with their physical form and how that kind of metamorphosed into the work that I make today. And initially, hi, Grace.
Hello. I lost you for a second there.
Yeah. We want to go back, or how do we want to go?
No, that's fine. That's fine. I've seen the images, but I haven't heard anything, but that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, so I just capturing that masculinity, but like not in a very, in my view, standard way, because a lot of male models are used to being hangers. So when I would work with them, it was the whole, I feel like they enjoyed the process more than when I worked with women. Because women, I would give them some random direction and they would get confused or get, to internalizing, internalizing too much what I was asking instead of just letting their bodies go. But men, they would have fun with it and just start doing stuff, because a lot of these guys are just super athletic and you give them a chance to like jump around or, do stuff and they like just do it and they have fun with it. So this was my first editorial that I shot for Details magazine in 2013. And they chose an image that was like super boring and basic. But this was one of my favorite shots from the shoot. I really like pitched, I was like, hey, like these are the shots, these are the ones. And I think as a photographer, you really have to advocate for yourself and for your vision with publications. So back then I didn't know that you shouldn't send them every single shot from the shoot, which I did do. And that just, they picked like the most boring basic image ever. And so I just shot myself in the foot with that one. But now like I keep my edit very tight and I always put a separate edit of my favorites. And I'm like, these are the ones. Sometimes I'm like, these are the only ones. At least that's what happened with my Stacey Abrams cover that just came out. I was like, these are the only ones that should be published. And that was for the Washington Post, the cover of the Washington Post magazine. And they published the only ones that I said should be published. So I was very happy with that. But this is kind of like that progression of like creating shapes, creating kind of like emotional things, playing with lighting. And like I said, originally I didn't say this to you guys, but I said it earlier. I was really only shooting white men at the beginning of my career because there weren't a lot of Black male models at the time that were fashion. Like most of the guys were very commercial, if there were any at all. And so I was like shooting a lot of white men. And a friend of mine was like, you need to be shooting Black men. Like that would be amazing for you. And I was like, I don't know. I don't think people are going to take me seriously if I do that. And she convinced me and I did. And I shot a Black male model for one of her, she had a magazine at the time called God's Magazine. And then it just kind of was a revelation. I was like, okay, like I want to, do this. But this is another image that I just really loved of, a model that, I'm working with a lot of guys that didn't have, I work with models that don't have any experience at all. And this was this model's first shoot. He was 16 years old, had lived in like the middle of nowhere in Georgia. And it was his first time in New York. And we were just on a street in Brooklyn and just working. And, he was kind of loosening up. And then we were talking and he's like, oh, I really like silly walking from the sketch from Monty Python. And I was like, oh, what's that? And he started doing it and it was very silly, like just walking silly down the street, like the most silly way you could walk. And then I was like, oh, cool. Like do that. So we started silly walking down the street. And then I was like, okay, I was like, well, how did I tell him? I was like, okay, like lighten your step when you're doing it. And I was like, put a ballet element into it. I was like, put a hop into it. And he just like opened up and did this shot, which is like one of my favorite shots I've ever taken. But anyways, I have more, but I don't know if you want to hop into something else or talk about any of this work.
I wanted to, I think what I've noticed with your work is just there's such a beautiful use of color and then it creates this depth and dynamic feeling. And I'm in particular interested in then when you started focusing more on, I guess, the Black liberation in forms of the expression that you use to layers.
the expression that I use. What was the end part of that question?
All the sorry. I don't know why. Sorry, Elias, can you jump in?
Sure. Dana, it'd be great to hear about the kind of the move to focus on the Black body and what kind of opportunities that provided for you, or what you were perhaps feel like you can communicate through that, and your use. There's such a dramatic use of shadow and lightness and darkness in the work, and these angles of the body that we're kind of first seeing in this in the model that's on screen at the moment. But if you could talk about how you progressed and really sort of focused on the Black body and what that meant for you in your practice.
Yeah. So I think I have, that might be the next slide. It's not, but this is also just a progression of shape, and this model is also, he's mixed race, he's Black, but he is white passing, and so this is, I guess, the beginning of that. And I was mainly shooting on handball courts that are here in New York. They are I've never been to a city where they have handball courts everywhere. I'm from Chicago, we don't have them anywhere. But they're all over the city, and they turned into, at least wherever it was that I was living at the time, they turned into my studio and my site. So, excuse me. So if I was shooting at the handball court. And because it afforded me space to have these guys move around. The light is really beautiful. The light changes throughout the day. And most of the time nobody's bothering you, and it's a way to shoot outdoors and not be on the street. So I would always say to photographers, you know, you can find a way. You don't have to have a studio, you don't have to book studio time. I literally shot the bulk of my work outdoors and on handball courts for almost 6 years. And I have a full body of work of just handball courts. So anywho, this is a model named George O'Kenny. And, you know, we're working, and I feel like when I say we're working, it's like, it's a process, you know what I mean? Like, you don't automatically get to this moment. You kind of have to, like, I would give models, now I don't really do this as much because I have just a handle on how to get models to move. But I used to, like, with one of my first shoots, a lot of my first shoots actually, I would give them a nugget, like, pretend like you're an astronaut. If they're like very, heavy, if their bodies are just like, like robotic. So if you're an astronaut, you're like in space, you have to like lighten everything up. And then pretend like you're an astronaut doing Tai Chi. So then that means you're kind of like maybe moving your arms around, and you're kind of like slow, and you're like, but you're also weightless and in space. And then this, another one was pretend like you're an astronaut doing Tai Chi while getting chased by Godzilla. So,
what's great about that dance, it really takes you out of the everyday. Look at these bodies in motion. It's very different to what you would normally expect from either portraiture or fashion photography that is about kind of maybe a slightly elevated everyday experience. This is kind of, it's more like dance or performance in that way.
Yeah, and a lot of people think that I shoot dancers. What I have, like, intermittently, but 9 times out of 10, or 9.5 times out of 10, like, these people are not dancers. They're would call themselves awkward or just whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think that's been kind of like a pleasure point for me within my career, is like making these people look like they're like they're just very comfortable in these poses. They are comfortable in these poses, actually. It's a lot of work to get there, and they're, you know, sweating, and they, you know, don't have to go to the gym that day if they were gonna go. But you know, it's just making these shapes with bodies that aren't used to creating these types of shapes. So and have it look natural, because a lot of people try to do movement and it looks very awkward. So yeah.
Do you have some more images to look at and perhaps see
Absolutely.
how? Yeah, I think what's really interesting is seeing the black and white and the color. They both kind of work in the same spectrum, but
yeah,
of kind of image making. But
yeah.
it's interesting to see them side by side like this.
So this image is from Scruggs magazine, and it's in the book, I think, also. But yeah, this was my first time where I really just like was in awe of my work and what I could actually create with a model. And this model is essentially, he's my muse. His name is Adonis Basso, and I feel like the work that I create with him is unlike work that I create with anyone else. And when I shot him for Scruggs, that's what kind of propelled me to the trajectory of I really am only interested in shooting Black models, and I want to see where that goes. I want to create that body of work. So so yeah, shooting Adonis, and then these were some other muses, which I rarely shot women during this period unless they were paying me. But these are some friends of mine, Sasha and Sable. They're models, they're actors. They are dancers, and just this was the second time I photographed them, and you know, when I work with them, it just, I don't know, it's just artistry, you know, like we have a shorthand. I feel like some of my strongest images have come from work that I've shot with them. So. And this is from the period after I shot Adonis and was photographing more Black models and utilizing the outdoors again. I would just shoot in my neighborhood. I was living in Queens at this time. And yeah, I mean, there's no excuse to, you know, not make work. Like you have the ability wherever it is that you are. It doesn't matter if you're like in the middle of nowhere. You have a friend that you can photograph. You can photograph yourself. You know, also this was around the same time, and this model I just had wanted to photograph for a while. I just really loved her look. And this was a fun shoot. I just feel like, you know, when you work with somebody who is just willing, that's like 10, you know, that's like the easiest process is, you know, when they're very willing and creative. So
Great.
Are there any comments or anything I should?
So we're having difficulty with Grace's connection at the moment, but she has sent through some comments since she can't be with us on screen. So she's really interested to know, doing what you love and choosing your medium is an act of activism in this world that doesn't afford Black people autonomy. Taking up space that informs how you do that, especially in spaces where colonial structures reign, institutions and gatekeepers. How does one value your craft when so much of our system oppresses our experiences and expressions? Do you think you can speak to that?
I think that it's just important to, in some ways, to be uncompromising. Of course, you have to compromise in life, and you have to compromise in your interactions with people in whatever industry you're working in. And I definitely make compromises. But I think when you decide that this is what you want to do, this is how you want to present yourself, this is how you want to present your work, this is the kind of work you want to do, just you don't compromise on Oh wait, I'm not sharing my screen anymore.
Sorry,
But
that's me, just so so people can see you as you're
oh, they
talking.
can't see me still? Oh, okay. So yeah. What was I saying? Oh yeah, compromising. But yeah, I think when you're not compromising, so basically an example of that would be when I was first starting out, or maybe within the first couple of years of me working, people would say, oh, well, you're not going to make any money because the money is with the women. Like, you know, you should be shooting women. And I'm like, I'm not interested in shooting them. Like, they don't inspire me. Um, you know, I want to shoot men. And I did. And shooting men is what ended up getting and developing my aesthetic with men and developing the motion and the shapes that I was creating with men was what got me ESPN's Body Issue. So and they hired me to shoot a woman. So it's like they could see that I could take a picture. They could see that I could create form and lines with, you know, a person with a person's body. So it didn't matter that I had a full body of work that was like 99% men.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first big shot. Like that was the first opportunity to do anything really that I'd been given. And it was such a crazy moment because you have photographers that wait their whole careers and they still haven't shot for the issue. And they picked me like out of obscurity because I had just been posting on Instagram or on Tumblr or somewhere. Like the photo director found my work online. So I always say also post your stuff online. You can't like, you know, dawdle in obscurity and expect people to hire you. Like some people are very bougie about posting their work, or they even have like a password to get into their website. And I'm like, are you crazy? It's just like, how do you expect anyone to see? So, so yeah, that's what happened. You know, and that's how I got the Body Issue.
And is it correct you were the first Black woman to shoot for the Body Issue?
I was, yes. When they offered it to me, I knew automatically that I was because, you know, it's just the nature of like, there's just no, I mean, there were some Black female photographers working at the time, definitely, but just not that many. And also like, I just know the Body Issue and I followed the Body Issue. I was a huge fan of it. And I had made the goal that I wanted one day shoot for the Body Issue. And I didn't expect it to just come out of the blue one day. Actually, the same day I got fired from the job that that we're talking about right now on Instagram, I got an email for the Body Issue, which was crazy. So anywho, yeah, I was the first Black person or Black woman, and then I asked them to check their archive to see if I was the first. And my photo editor said that he'd been there the whole 10 years and he knew that I was the first and that it was a long time coming. So, so yeah, you know, they hired me because they love my work and that's what feels good. And that wasn't their agenda. But if there was going to be anyone to be the first, I'm glad it was me.
Congratulations for that. It was long overdue. On that note, Grace has also sent another comment. We've got a few questions to get through. She said, seeing yourself reflected back, whether or not it's in museums or publications, is so important and carries so much responsibility. You've done some groundbreaking work here. How important is that work to you? And what does it mean for the younger creative you? And do you feel that responsibility for other young Black people, particularly Black photographers?
I think it is a responsibility. I think, you know, for me to, you know, I'm talking about the fact that I'm the first for these two, for the Body Issue, because it was just a huge career milestone. And then also the fact that I was the first in 10 years was something that we should talk about because people aren't thinking about, you know, who they're hiring and why they're hiring and the whole thought process behind, okay, I'm going to hire somebody that I know. I'm going to hire somebody that is a friend of a friend. I'm going to hire somebody that is just, you know, the path of least resistance instead of seeking. So that was a conversation that needed to be had. And then also when Rolling Stone happened, that was another conversation that needed to be had, you know, being the first Black person in 50 years. And again, when they offered it to me, they didn't know that I was the first. I knew. And I waited until it had been shot. I waited until it had been approved and it was 100% the cover. And then I asked them to check their archive to see if I was the first, because I had a feeling that I was, and they did. And they said I was the first. So, you know, I was like, you know, I need to talk about this. I think people that are like Black photographers that are at the forefront of this new movement, that are getting opportunities for the first time that Black people have not gotten, need to be talking about the race issue. Like, it's not something that, you know, we can just you know, just be silent on, because this is an opportunity. When these things are happening, people are listening. And I know for a fact that, you know, photo editors were listening when I was talking about it the first and the second time. And I know for a fact that it's made a difference in how they decide to hire. I'm not saying that they should only hire Black photographers to shoot Black people, because I don't think that that's the case. I think you should seek photographers that are Black, that are talented for, you know, whatever job, you know what I mean? So so yeah, I think when people start seeking like they're like looking at other people's work, giving other people a chance instead of hiring the same people over and over again and not giving anyone else an opportunity, you know, yeah, so.
And bringing people's attention to these facts, I think, is incredibly important, because whether it's for people within the industry to wake up to the fact that this kind of systemic level of racism has persisted, or for people outside to realize that this is the case, because people are not necessarily familiar with you know, who photographers are, unless they're, you know, they follow that type of culture. To bring it to people's attention, it's a chance to be able to shock people out of accepting what has been up to this point. I've got a couple more questions from viewers. One's asking about what kind of collaborations you've had to complement the publication. I think they're talking about Scruggs magazine. Were there any sort of collaborations that that you worked on or either came out of that publication?
No, I did it all myself. And I wasn't really interested in other people's voices or opinions on that. It was for me, and it was for me to do. And, you know, honestly, I'm also not a fan of critique. I get, you know, other photographers, you know, young photographers wanting me to critique their work. And I think when you're a young photographer, those early years are so critical to your development and so critical to your aesthetic that, you know, I don't want to tell you something should be changed, or that you should do something differently, or I don't like this, or I don't like that, because that's when people start making work for other people. They're making work to please an audience, and I was making work to please myself. So when I stopped trying, like, I went through a period of, you know, feeling like, okay, things aren't working out for me here. You know, I should try to shoot the way these other photographers are shooting, on these like washed out gray backgrounds, and doing this type of look or retouching or just like really basic shit. I was like not happy. And when I said, you know what, I'm just gonna shoot what I like, and it might not look like everybody else's, it might not even be good, but I'm pleased with this work. And generally, most of the stuff I shoot, I actually don't really like. It takes me a while to like it, but I'm pleased with the direction that it's going in. So yeah, I think, you know, make work for yourself, don't make work for other people. Don't feel like you have to collaborate on everything with other people, or care about other people's opinions. Only care about your own opinion, at least initially. If you're working with a client, definitely their opinion counts. But I think also make sure that you are being heard clearly, and that your voice is being clearly heard when you're working with clients and magazines, because they will run you right over, and then they'll be unhappy with the results and blame you. So you have to make sure that you, which hasn't happened to me, luckily, but not really. Maybe once or twice, but yeah, early on.
But that's excellent advice. Another question that's coming from the audience. Are there particular artists or historical movements that influence your work?
Yes, I actually have further down in the slides. I have some work that I shot of it was kind of like an homage to Carrie James Marshall's work. I shot it with the model Alton Mason, and we kind of recreated some of his more iconic photographs, but like my interpretation of them. So yeah, he definitely inspires me. I love the photographer Hero, which I actually have his book right in front of me, open on my coffee table. I always have his book open on my coffee table. It's like really amazing. You can get it on Amazon, or not Amazon, on eBay. You can find it on eBay or like find it online. Maybe like $30 or $40 in good condition. There's a photo of Sean Penn in there that is like so stunning, and it's one of my favorite images. But Hero, who used to be Abaddon's first assistant, and then he became, his own iconic photographer.
Great. Early on in this conversation, you very openly brought up the issue of depression and how that was a kind of a factor or something you're responding to early on. And I've heard you talk about that in other conversations about your photography, which I think is really important, to be very open about mental health in that way in regards to creative practice. How do you see this reflected in your work, or how does your work help you with your depression in any way?
I don't really see it reflected in my work, but I definitely see it reflected in my either lack of energy for working, for making work, or retouching. So yeah, I mean, it took Scruggs a really long time to finish, because I wouldn't say I was like completely depressed during that time. It was a lot. It was a lot of pressure. When I feel a lot of pressure, I start getting these like death ideologies. Not that I'm suicidal at all. I just think I'm gonna die. You know what I mean? I think something's gonna happen, and then no one's gonna see my work. So that's what happened with Scruggs. I was very much in the throes of feeling like I was gonna pass away somehow, and it would just sit on my hard drive for eternity until the AI aliens came and found it frozen in the ice, and then saw the magazine. Like, they would be the only ones to see it. So like, I sent all of my passwords to a friend of mine so that she could get into all the files, and gave all of her information to like my printer and my designer. And it's just when things take so long to happen, and then also like I just didn't feel motivated to shoot a lot for a period of time when I was doing Scruggs, like intermittent periods, like long periods. And then it took me 2 years to retouch the Adonis pictures, like just to get those colors right. And now I can do that in 2 seconds. But back then I was teaching myself how to do everything. I'm completely self-taught. So, I was teaching myself how to do everything. I was trying to figure out my aesthetic. I was trying to figure out how these images were supposed to look. I wasn't liking how they were looking. And that's, is a cycle of, not depression necessarily, but you feel defeated. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's just important to keep going, even though things are like taking a long time, even though you feel like you're not seeing results, and also to not compare your life to other people's, not compare your career, not compare projects or anything like that, because you don't know what people have gone through to make that work, and you don't know how long it took them to make that work. So, they were in the same boat as you at a certain point, but you just don't know that because you're just looking at, Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Great. It's good advice to hear for, I think, many professions, not just photography. I've got a final question that Grace was able to send through. She wants to know what it was like to collaborate with Antoine Sargent on the New Black Vanguard, and how important was it working on this legacy project?
Well, I don't think any of us knew what it was going to be. When Antoine reached out to me, I was just kind of like early into people actually knowing who I was, or like my name kind of being around as a photographer. And I was happy I was like, sure, Aperture, I, know who they are. Like I admire the books that come out of there. So I was like, sure, yeah, I'll be a part of it. And yeah, it just really blew up, and I feel like it gave a lot of hope to a lot of Black photographers that there could be a light at the end of the tunnel, that people could actually you know recognize our talents and recognize the Black gaze as valid, especially over, and I honestly think over the white gaze. I think our viewpoints, or who we are, has been colonized enough. White people, of course, can take photographs of Black people, but I think when you center white people in the narratives of Black people, that's where things go wrong, and it's not okay. It's not. There's so many Black photographers that are making incredible work about Black people, but they literally cannot get a show. They can't get in a book. They can't get published. So they can't get in what are those artist retreats? I don't go on them, but the artist retreats where they like, what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Those things. They have a specific name, but they can't get into those either. So, it's like, it gets very frustrating. And that's why a lot of people give up. I have friends that are literally completely depressed, completely, hopeless, and, wanting to give up because they've been doing this for so long without any recognition, or maybe a snippet here and there. And then they see white photographers who have honestly not very much talent in comparison to them, getting everything. So, I think it's an important conversation to have, that, white people are rewarded for being white and for photographing Black people. And Black people aren't rewarded or recognized for the work that they're doing in their own communities. So.
Dana, thank you. I think that's a very good note to end this conversation on, and something that we'll be looking at continuing.
Oh, I can't go through my photos? I feel like we'll things together.
Oh, okay. Well, let's spin through some. Hang on 2 secs. How do I just do this? Oops. Okay, go for it.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so I will be brief because I know we're at the end. So yes, saw this image. This is an image I took in Paris on the street about 2 or 3 years ago. And like I said, you can make work anywhere, and I just absolutely love the abstraction of this. I'm always seeking abstraction in my work. Again, I think also I'm attracted to images where the model's face is hidden, Black model's face is hidden. I think, when I was mainly shooting Black men, kind of the core idea of that was that, Black men are objectified and fetishized for, their bodies. But their identity of who they are, their faces, they have to hide in order to keep themselves safe, which we already know. So it's like, we don't want to actually know who you are. We only want you to run a ball like Colin Kaepernick. We only want you to shuck and jive or whatever. Even like with Black women, like look at Beyonce when she spoke out with her amazing performance at the Super Bowl. It's like, we just want you to entertain us. That's all we want. We don't want to know anything about what you've experienced. We don't want to hear about racism. We don't want to hear about anything that makes us feel uncomfortable. So that's how I feel like with my work, especially with Black men. I feel like that conveys that as well. And I shot this in Mexico. maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. I was just always doing stuff like on my own. So like this model, we both wanted to shoot with each other. We both found out we were going to be in Mexico at the same time. So we flew to Cancun separately and met up, and then took a bus to Playa del Carmen, and then walked like an hour on the beach to find like a private cove. But anywho, and then this image is also it's in the show, actually.
It is.
And this image has sold out, so there are no editions left, which I'm very happy about. It was first exhibited at No Commission, which is Swizz Beatz show that he puts on around the world. And yeah, it's just also doing this on my own, really. I mean, I did it with Chromat, which is a brand out here in New York, a swimwear brand. And I told Becca, the owner, that I was going to be in LA and I wanted to do something in the desert with Chromat. And she gave me a little money. I put my own money in, and it was me and two other black and women of color, just like in a car with the model, just driving out into the desert, and we just did everything out of the back of the Jeep. So this is from The Body Issue, which was my first big foray into editorial and being the first Black woman to shoot The Body Issue. And this is Tori Bowie, who was the fastest woman in the world at the time. And I just love this image. There's so many stunning images from this shoot, to be honest. And looking at this makes me want to revisit. But yeah, it's really, really gorgeous. And so this is the cover of Rolling Stone with Travis Scott, and kind of changed everything for me. The Body Issue, like, kind of let people know who I was. And then when Rolling Stone came out and everything with that, it just like was an explosion. And I was just like working constantly. I was like, within like a month and a half, I was in Rio shooting something for Nike. It was just like a crazy time for me. And I really I went from like 0 to like 1,000, and it was a learning experience. I had never worked on that level. Everything I did was guerrilla style before that. And then my Essence shoot, or my Essence cover that same year. So last year, 2019, I shot like 9 covers. And a lot of the covers, I would say I was probably the first Black person or Black female photographer to shoot it. I stopped asking because it's like, I already know. I don't want that to be a part of my narrative. Mm-hmm. I'm only like discussing that within the context of those two because of the visibility that I had with that, and the opportunity to start a discussion about why that's a problem.
Dana,
so it went out. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we are going to have to bring it to a close now, but I think that is a beautiful place to end. Okay. And as you mentioned about websites before, one thing I really appreciate about you as a photographer is how comprehensive your website is. It's a really beautiful way for anyone to go and look and understand your work, and also see the progression of your practice over a number of years. So I encourage anyone that's interested in your work to go and visit it. I believe it's just danascruggs.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's Dana.
Dana, sorry, apologies.
Oh, I mean, I don't mind Donna. The Brits, they love to call me Donna.
And
I love it. But it is Dana, but I don't mind Donna.
Dana, apologies. It's my British accent.
Time didn't cause me Donna too, so.
Okay. Thank you so much for such an open and honest conversation with us today and insights into your work. It's fantastic to see. Hopefully we'll be able to host you here in Australia at some point in the future when things calm down around the world. And it just leaves me to let people know that you can join us again for Photo Live on Thursday at 6 p.m. with another photographer from the New Black Vanguard, Stephen Teo, who is based over in Lagos. And if you want to know more about the program, visit photo.org.au. Dana, thank you. Such a pleasure to meet you virtually. And we'll be all following your practice from afar and look forward to meeting you in person at some point. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Bye.